All right, ready to dive into Exodus.
Let's do it.
We're talking about one of the most famous escapes in history, but trust me, there's way more to this story than you might think.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We're digging deep into Exodus 13:15 today. Plagues, parting seas, the whole dramatic escape.
Right.
But we're going beyond just the surface here, using ancient texts, commentaries, really trying to uncover some of the deeper meanings that are woven into the story.
I like it.
What can we learn from this ancient story, thousands of years old?
Right.
What's relevant to our lives today? That's what we're going to explore.
Yeah, it's amazing how these stories, even after all this time, still resonate with us
Isn't
today.
it wild?
Yeah.
Okay, so right out of the gate in Exodus 13, we get this commandment to sanctify the firstborn. I don't know about you, but I always found that a little intense. Like both people, A and D animals. What's the deal with that?
It's definitely one of those details that makes you stop and think. In the ancient Near East, dedicating the firstborn, whether we're talking about human or animal, it was a way to acknowledge a deity's power, asking for their blessing, their protection. You know, a powerful symbol of gratitude.
So kind of like offering the best of what you have, sort of a...
Exactly. Now, the Israelites were specifically instructed to redeem their firstborn sons, meaning they would offer a substitute sacrifice instead.
Interesting.
And this highlights the special place that humans held in the divine order, right? But it's more than just a ritual.
Okay.
There's this fascinating part where they're commanded to tell their children about this escape with specific details, like making history come alive.
It's like, gather around, kids. Let me tell you about the time God turned a river into blood.
Precisely. Living through it wasn't enough. They had to keep the story alive.
Right.
Pass it down through generations. This act of remembrance, this storytelling, became central to their identity. This is who they were, a people freed from slavery.
And you can see how powerful that would be.
Oh, yeah.
To have that shared history, that reminder that even when things seem impossible, freedom, is possible.
Absolutely. And it emphasizes the importance of passing on our own stories, our own values to future generations.
Now, here's another detail that always kind of struck me as interesting. They were told to avoid the most obvious route.
Okay.
The one straight through Philistine territory. You'd think after all those plagues, a little detour would be no big deal. Why go the long way around?
Remember, they weren't just on a physical journey. They were on a mental and spiritual one, too.
Oh, okay.
They were fleeing slavery and fatigue, fear, even the potential for an immediate conflict. Those things could lead to surrender, even mutiny. Taking that longer route through the wilderness, it was strategic. It was about preserving their newfound freedom, not just geographically, but mentally and spiritually, too.
So it's about pacing yourself, choosing your battles wisely.
Absolutely.
That's a lesson that feels pretty relevant today, even if we aren't, fleeing Pharaoh's army. Okay, one last thing from this section that always gets me.
Yeah.
The pillar of cloud and fire. Talk about epic guidance.
Oh, yeah.
It's like something straight out of a movie, right?
The imagery is incredibly powerful. That pillar represents God's constant presence, guiding and protecting them through the unknown. It's a visible reminder that they weren't alone.
And that brings us to the edge of the Red Sea. Exodus 14. This is where things get really interesting. Talk about a between a rock and a hard place situation.
Oh, yeah.
The Israelites are caught between Pharaoh's army and, well, a whole lot of sea.
It's the climax of the story so far.
Yeah.
It is interesting. You point out the contrast, right?
Right.
Right before this, the text says they were going out boldly.
Right.
And now they're trapped.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like, they had this burst of courage and now reality is setting in.
Right.
Which honestly feels very relatable.
Totally.
Have you ever felt that kind of pressure? Like, where it seems like the walls are closing in?
I think we all have in our own way. And the Israelites' reaction, the panic, the blame, it's very human.
Oh, yeah.
But what happens next? That's where things take a turn.
Right. God tells Moses, stand by and see the salvation. That line always gives me chills. It's like this incredible promise, but also easier said than done. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is about faith, about trusting in something beyond what you can see or control.
Right.
And it's a message that echoes through history, even in our own lives today. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to surrender control and just trust in a bigger plan. But how do we actually do that?
Right.
Especially when we're facing those Red Sea moments in our own lives. What do you think?
That's the question, isn't it? And I think that's where this imagery of the parting of the sea becomes so powerful. We're talking about a literal miracle here, a moment where the impossible becomes possible.
It's pure symbolism. The sea represents chaos, the unknown. By splitting it, God is demonstrating, ultimate power over nature itself.
Yeah.
Creating this path to freedom for his people. It's an image that's resonated for millennia.
Right.
This idea that even when things seem insurmountable, there might be a way through that we can't even imagine yet.
It's interesting, though, that the story even mentions the Egyptian chariot wheels, like swerving as they try to follow. It's a small detail, but it always felt significant to me.
I see what you mean. Yeah, it adds a layer of believability.
Yeah.
But it also reinforces this idea that every action has consequences. Even in the chaos, even the Egyptians in their final moments, they're not just these nameless, faceless enemies. They're individuals caught in a web of their own making.
Yeah.
It's those small details that give the story such depth, make it feel so real, even after all these years.
Okay, so they've crossed the Red Sea, talk about dodging a bullet, right?
All right.
And now it's time to celebrate. Exodus 15 paints this incredibly vivid picture of their victory. The Song of Moses, Miriam leading the women with tambourines and dancing. It's a whole vibe.
It's a powerful reminder, I think, of how music and communal celebration have always been so intertwined with faith and cultural memory.
Yeah.
Imagine the energy, the emotion as they sang and danced, solidifying this experience in their collective memory. It makes you wonder, what are the songs, the stories that have that kind of power in our lives today?
That's a great question, and it makes this next part even more striking because they're barely free, they're singing their hearts out, and bam, bitter water at Mara.
Oh, yeah.
You'd think after escaping, the mighty Egyptian army, a little bad taste wouldn't be a big deal.
Right. It's almost comical, isn't it? But think about it. How often do we experience something amazing only to find something else to complain about later?
Oh, all the time.
This story, even with its ancient context, it highlights that very human tendency to forget blessings quickly, to grumble even after miracles. We're always on to the next thing, the next worry.
It's so true. It makes you wonder if part of the challenge of freedom is learning to appreciate it, to not let the little things, even bitter water, overshadow the big picture.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep.
Their reaction sets up a really crucial lesson here. Freedom isn't just about escaping something, it's about moving towards something greater. In this case, a relationship with God, which comes with responsibilities as well as blessings. It's about growth.
And that leads us to that last detail that I find so fascinating. God doesn't just magically sweeten the water. He gives them laws, tests them. It's like he's saying, okay, you're free from slavery, but now comes the real work of building a life, a society based on something meaningful.
It's a process of transformation.
Yeah.
They've been brought out of Egypt, but now they need to be shaped into a people, a community with shared values and a commitment to something, again, bigger than themselves. And that requires guidance, even discipline.
So much to unpack here. We've got remembrance, facing fear, trusting in a larger plan, and then this idea that true freedom is an ongoing journey, not just a destination. What stands out to you as particularly relevant to your own life?
It's that idea of standing by and seeing the salvation that really resonates deeply with me. That sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is surrender control, trust in something beyond ourselves. It's a message that feels particularly powerful in times of uncertainty and change.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. Where in your own life might you need to stand by and see the salvation? What bitter waters are you facing that might need a touch of the divine? A shift in perspective, maybe just a moment of gratitude. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and until next time, happy diving.
Welcome to Charlie and Mia's podcast. We're embarking on an exciting journey to read through the entire Bible in just 1 year. Every day, we dive into Scripture, exploring its meanings and how it applies to our lives today. We invite you to join us on this incredible adventure of learning and discovery. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode.